Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown back again. If you weren't here for the first part, the Verizon crashed my show. I came back and then I found out it was live to everyone and it's not supposed to be live to everyone. Thank you, Benny, for telling me. So this is try 3 to return to finish the show. It's one of those days. And I'm so glad all of you actually have come back. You're the best. And after I cussed out Verizon using my daughter's name, I'm just so glad that I have you guys here to cheer me back up again because I was so mad. So I'm back. They fixed the glitch, but they don't know why it glitched. So they're like, well, call us when it happens again. And I'm like, that's your answer? Like, you don't want to check the equipment or anything? You're just going to say, we don't know? But that's what they're saying. So hopefully this was a rare glitch, but I've been having problems with Verizon. So I'm not holding out a lot of hope. But anyway, thank you. Oh my God. Christine is here now. Jamie's here. Annie is here. Wow. Texas Redhead is back. Clarissa's here. Lisa S is here. Nicole is here. Benny's back. Who else is back after that recent disaster? Oh Lord. But if you haven't seen the first part of the show, you can always go back and watch that. If you're here now and just catch up. But if you're watching this as from the public, when I do put it live to the public, you'll see the show from beginning to end. So, and if you're here still, you already saw the first half. Okay. I shall calm down. I shall. Okay, let me go straight to what I wanted to talk about because I've wasted enough time in this nightmare of Verizon failures. So I'm obviously not being paid for, Verizon's not paying me for giving any advertising on my show, as you can see. And because Verizon, I don't like you right now. So I'm not saying anybody should get your service because sometimes you really suck. So they're not on my list for advertising. Anyway, let me go to this really interesting case. Now that I've just messed you all up so much. All right, I want to talk about this guy. This case here. All right. See, this guy came into a jewelry store and attacked this man. All right. Let me read you the story. This is amazing. And this has to do with the court system and the way we deal with things. Unbelievable. So anyway, this was in Wilmington, Delaware. Jewelry store owner Chang Sa, the 68-year-old man, was tending his shop on September 15th when the man he presumed was a customer appeared at the front door. Sue, I don't know how to pronounce it, had installed a security system that required him to buzz each patron in. And I've been to jewelry stores like that because they have like really expensive stuff and they're not like in a big fancy mall or something. They're standalones and they look at you and then they buzz you in. So they don't have tons of people rolling through the store. Just they can focus on you. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't harm them, especially in days where everybody wears masks, even if they don't need to so much anymore. But okay, some people think you do. But some people don't want to give them up because they want to do bad things with a mask on. And it's just so great that our society now has no problem with masked people entering stores and banks. Works out for criminals. Anyway, so this guy appeared. His store sold high dollar jewelry, after all, and the area had developed a bit of a reputation for crime. But the person he buzzed in that day didn't plan to buy jewelry, quite the opposite. It was a violent repeat offender. It was this guy. His name is Calvin Ushery. He's 39 years old. He came in with a hammer, a pistol, and an empty bag. According to his son and the security camera footage, which I'll link the video. I mean, there's this video of him coming in the store and beating this man down to the floor. Okay, now let me tell you what he did to this man. He pistol whipped him 3 times. He fell to the ground and laid there before Ushery hopped the counter and stomped on his head. Then he bludgeoned him again, striking him 28 times in all. The final 2 with a hammer. Then he emptied the contents of the display case into his bag. One piece after another he took. He stole Saul's hard-earned inventory and with it his livelihood. Against all odds, he survived. This guy survived that beating. I don't know how. And he managed to call 911 to report the burglary. When the police arrived, he spoke with them briefly before falling unconscious. Then he spent 4 days in intensive care. He has internal head bleeding and severe concussion. A week later, Ushery was arrested and charged with, now get the charges here, possession of a firearm during the commission of a robbery, a felony, a robbery in the first degree, possession of a firearm by a person prohibited, because he's got a lengthy criminal record. Get the last one, and criminal mischief. Criminal mischief. Okay, under 5,000. Okay, what? Now, where did the attempted homicide charge go? Because when you hit somebody that many times, you're trying to kill them. Okay, it should be attempted homicide. But they didn't charge him with that. And the family is like blown away. How much did he take? More than $100,000 in jewelry. According to the victim's family, only 10 to 50% has been recovered. They don't expect to recover more. All right. So this poor guy now is a rehab facility. He's trying to learn how to walk again. All right. Now, meanwhile, they caught this guy because he was trying to sell the darn jewelry, right? And so it's not a question of who he is. This is who he is, right? Now, they're like, oh, we can't wait to go to court, this guy. Okay. Now, here's the part that is unbelievable. All right. This article is written by BNN Network. It says the complexity of justice, a hung jury despite video evidence. Yeah, you heard it right. You can see the guy coming in the store and beating this man solidly. And then he leaves the store and tries to sell the jewelry. Everybody knows who he is. It's not a question. There's clear evidence and there's video evidence. And you always think, well, there's video evidence. Well, that would solve things. Guy's a repeat offender, video evidence, found with a gun that that he wasn't allowed to carry, found selling jewelry. What more do you need? Well, apparently for that one person on the jury, yeah, that one person. So what happened here? A hung jury couldn't get a unanimous verdict. All right, and it says here, this incident has sparked debates about the effectiveness of video evidence. Well, it should be effective. It's like the best thing you can get, but hey, I guess it doesn't matter. But here's the important part, and the factors that influence jury decisions, which is why I'm against civilian juries. I want professional juries. You can get those 12 people off a bus stop. All you need is one who says, oh, I don't think he did it, or I don't want him to go to jail. Who knows? All right. So they couldn't agree on his guilt despite the video evidence. Just unbelievable. Now, it's a hung jury. Will they take it back and try again? Because, this is the weird thing about hung juries, is that the prosecution can decide to try to go back and get them to agree this time, which I think is also funny because, like, how many times do you get to go back and get a guilty out of them? You get 12 new people and maybe they'll help you out. I mean, something's wrong with this whole picture, but and apparently they can go back as many times as they feel necessary and as much as they want to spend the money on doing. But crazy. Video evidence. Check that out. How is that even possible? Oh, my God. So I just thought that was fascinating. I'm checking out your comments now. Yeah, Justin, it's like maybe this one. I need a confession, otherwise not guilty. Well, maybe that was it. I didn't do it. It looked just like me. I have the gun. I have the jewelry. I had the video of me, but not me. I don't know what they need sometimes to convict anymore. I mean, it's kind of outrageous. No, we do not, Lisa. We have only unanimous, which I think is kind of a crazy thing because, in a way, how often is any group of people unanimous on anything? So the idea here is, of course, it's got to be so absolute. The prosecution has to do so well that nobody can possibly question. But that's not real life. I mean, when you get to the point where the prosecution pretty much can't convict anybody anymore, you got an issue. It's and I don't want anybody to be convicted who isn't guilty, and I don't want the prosecution to be able to put a bullcrap case together and slide that through either. I'm not in favor of prosecutorial misconduct, because I have some cases where I think it happened. But on the other hand, when you get to the point of ridiculousness, you got to say, what the heck is going on with that? So And the most do get away with crime, especially because they don't even stay in jail very long. So it's like they come and go, and they also a lot of times will push down the charges so that they can try to get an agreement from the jury. So in other words, if they charge him with attempted murder, the jury might go, I'm not sure that he really tried to kill him. I mean, yes, he hit him like, 20 some times, but he maybe just lost his mind, but he wasn't trying to kill him. So it's not really attempted murder. It's just he was in a bad mood. And so maybe that's why they dropped it down to something that they could all agree on. And even then they couldn't agree on it. So if this guy, this guy's a massive danger to the community, and he's a repeat offender, and he's going to do it again and again and again and again. It's phenomenal. Just phenomenal. Oh, that's very nice. I don't think that's true, but some patrons disappear after they get they're like, I don't know about her anymore. Usually it's over one case or one train of thought, which is that train of thought I'll have at the end of this video. I did promise you all that. Anyway, so let's go on to something. Oh, now I want to talk about this. I just point this out because I think it's interesting. The issue of culture in crime. It can be different in different places. And sometimes we don't recognize that. So we're saying, well, how is this possible? Why would this happen? And so this is an interesting case right now. It's not a crime yet, but this guy, he's a singer. Let me pull up the thing on it. Now, where is that guy? Where'd he go? Okay. His name is Peso Pluma, which means featherweight, and he is an international. He's a singer and a songwriter, and he did this song El Balcón, and it's super popular. As you can see, it's got 247 million views. He's a super popular singer. Here's some more of him. This is El Balcón. Super popular. Now, he is known for regional Mexican music, best known for corridos, tumbados, songs that tell stories of the Mexican drug trade. Okay, now, you all know my opinion on rap music. We have too many rappers who they get killed all the time. I mean, it's like, well, which rapper's gone today? And some of them are really talented, but what do they sing about? Drugs, guns, money. And that's what they throw around on the screen, drugs and all that stuff. That's their thing. And I am opposed to that because I think it's telling young kids, this is cool. I don't like it. And these guys, they basically do the same thing. They got the guns, you can see them, and they look like they're like 3 years old. So it's like really kind of creepy. And then great singers, absolutely wonderful music. However, they look like children playing with guns and playing with the whole concept of the drug trade. I'm not fond of that. And they sing songs about all the different drug trade stuff and how they're planning their drug stuff and how they're going to ship their stuff. And I don't know, and it's concerning. Tell stories of the drug trade. Now, he burst onto the global stage earlier this year. However, he was planning to do a show in Tijuana, Mexico, just over the border in California, down south of San Diego. And apparently the drug cartels, one drug cartel didn't appreciate that. So what they did was they put up, did I lose my picture? No, here it is. They put this up. They hung up this banner over the highway. And basically they're saying, don't show up or we'll kill you. Okay, let me see if I can find the read on that, what it said. It said, where's the banner information? Oh, I can't find it. This story doesn't have the banner information in it. But anyway, they said, don't come here because, refrain from appearing this October 14th because it will be your last presentation. Now, this came out of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación. That is also known as a Jalisco New Generation Cartel, one of Mexico's most powerful drug cartels and one of the most vicious. All right. They come from Jalisco. Now, I think the problem that this guy has in his songs is he's not singing songs about their cartel. He is singing songs about El Chapo's Sinaloa cartel, who actually is the cartel for the area where Tijuana is. And the other cartel is not. But I guess they don't like those songs being sung about the other cartel. So he canceled it because I guess he didn't want to die. But he's got a problem. It's funny because he's actually singing songs that are like not pro drug traffickers and narcos, but just like, like folklore stuff, like, oh, the great cartel is an El Chapo, You would think they would appreciate this stuff. It's like, yeah, keep singing songs. Or they could just put in a request, all right, we heard you do your stuff on El Chapo, but hey, what about us? Couldn't you do some songs about us? We can all solve this problem. But it's an interesting cultural thing. So you can get taken out for singing the songs about the wrong person. I just think that's rather interesting. And, I say he's a good singer, but I just wish he'd stop singing about drug cartels, because that just kind of bothers me. Yeah. Honor among cartel thieves. Well, this guy's not even in them, but he just doesn't like the wrong cartel being serenaded. But now here's a really sad case. This guy, this is a Nigerian music star. His name is Mohbad, and he died just recently, September 12th. He's only 27 years old, and he died in Lagos, Nigeria, which I have been to, by the way. He doesn't sing drug songs. Actually, I really love his stuff. Not only do I like his style, but his videos are nice. Here he is, he's in a taxi, he's singing, he's happy. And then he's got these kids dancing in the street in their little school uniforms. And here he has one, which he's like, it kind of looks scary. These guys are all dressed up in these like Nigerian ceremonial outfits. And here he is, he's smiling and laughing. He's a cheerful, happy. The song was called Peace. I like this guy. He's dead. But why is he dead? So it's a strange story right now that is presently being investigated. So let me find the guy. Where's my guy in my story? Here we go. So what happened was he apparently didn't like his let's see. Hold on a second, I gotta find it here. He wanted to change his manager. And in trying to change his manager, apparently he was attacked and beaten. Now he claims it was the manager he was with, and they're pissed off because he wants to change managers because then the manager will lose money, all right? And now he's dead. Somehow he ended up at the hospital and died. And then he got buried, but now they're going to dig him back up and do an autopsy because that was never done. And you think to yourself, do people get murdered over stuff like that? Well, I know that, for example, in Jamaica, some of the reggae industry there, it was pretty rough. It was very, very rough. And there was a lot of stuff going on that was questionable and rough. So Nigeria, this is so sad. This guy was super popular. And then hey, his stuff was good. But you want to change producers and you get killed? Now, I'm not saying the producers killed him. I'm just saying they look really suspicious right now. But how sad. How absolutely sad. Sometimes, these businesses aren't as easy as people think they are. They say, oh, you've gotten rich and all this stuff. But, it's a tough industry, just like Hollywood is a tough industry. There's a whole bunch of tough stuff out there, and people get involved in it, and you just, yeah. Unless you like the cartels and, your cartel jefe, and you got your guards around you like constantly. That's about the way you keep safe. So it's kind of, he was not, I don't think. It was Marley, like Bob Marley, but this is Nigeria, so I'm not sure. I guess it's just a similar name. But I think that was just interesting to me. And I like the issue of cultural stuff sometimes, because when you're looking at a case and sometimes you say, well, why did this person get killed? You better know the culture that they're living in, whether it could be anything. It could be a subculture, like in America, you could have subcultures and you can have subcultures. And we don't necessarily understand the other world. And this, by the way, when I get to the end of the thing, when I tell people I'm going to talk about Masterson and what's his name again? Russell Brand, and what some of the things people don't understand. When you can check out if you don't want to hear this, there is a subculture that runs within Hollywood and the music industry and all this power, this stuff, and there's a lot at play. And if you've never been around it and you don't understand it, you think of things very basically, but that isn't necessarily the way it works. So there's these different cultures every place, and there's subcultures in these cultures. So it isn't even just like Mexico as a culture, but then there's a cartel subculture, and then there's subcultures all over Mexico in different areas, because culture is not all the same through Mexico. It's not all the same through the United States or whatever country you live in. We in the United States have many subcultures. And so sometimes, I have to learn from those people. If I'm going to study a case, I have to find out what that culture is, because I may not have a clue. One of the examples I gave for the recent, what was I talking about? The Odinism thing with Delphi, and everything's this dark stuff with Odinism, and how they have these runes and things. And I'm like, I was just down in Ocean City, Maryland for Bike Week. And I saw a lot of people in black shirts and skeletons and skulls and blood, and the guys look rough. They got big beards, and they're big motorcycles. Mind you, this is not a culture I understand at all. I happen to have a daughter and her husband who do ride motorcycles. They like to go to this. They're not really part of that culture either, but they like to ride motorcycles. And so do their friends. I was a babysitter for 3 children and a puppy, little dog. And I drove the kids down, and I drove the kids back, and I babysat so they could go to concerts. And I walked around in this where they were selling all kinds of T-shirts and stuff. And I'm thinking, wow, this is so not me. I don't ride a motorcycle. I don't like the noise. I don't like skulls. I don't like this. None of this appeals to me, like zero. But some people would come in and go, oh my God, all those people look so scary. Are they scary? Or is it just something it's a culture that I'm not connected to, and therefore I don't understand. So if something happened in that culture, I would need to have somebody else tell me what's normal and what's not normal, because I would not know. Same thing in a gaming culture. If somebody acts weird in a gaming culture, I don't really know, because I think all gamers act weird. Sorry, gamers, but I'm not a gaming person. I can't stand the stuff. So I would say, is that person a normal gamer, or is it even gamers? Do you not want to hang out with that person? Then something's fishy with them. So you have to understand culture when you're doing profiling to some extent. What is that? Loretta, unless you can fool the studio to pay your limo service. It wasn't a limo service. It was a transport service. I never lied. I got the studios to all pay me to come in because they hired my transport service, and I transported myself very, very well. Sometimes in a car, sometimes in a taxi, sometimes on my feet. It was totally legit. I never lied. Shh. Not all gamers act weird. I'm kidding you guys. I just don't understand gaming. It doesn't do a thing for me. But I know a lot of people love gaming. That's what I'm saying. You ever heard the word tweaker? Because I remember I did work a case many years ago, and I went to some gaming shop, and I literally have no clue about stuff. I went to the guy who ran it. I said, look, I don't know crap about this, and I want to ask you about this guy. And he goes, is he one of you guys? Is he a normal gamer, or is something wrong with this dude? And they went, oh my God, he's a tweaker. We think he's freaky. So that's how you have to go to the culture and find out from them, and whoever's involved in it, is that normal or not normal? So meth heads, that's a different tweaker. Yeah, that's a different one. He wasn't saying he was a meth head. He was just saying he was a freaky dude, and they didn't really like him there. So that was interesting. So you got to understand the culture, and everybody's got a different one. I have my own culture, and maybe some people don't like that either. That doesn't interest us. So there's literally weirdos. There are weirdos in every group. That's just the way it is. You got your normal people, and you got your weirdos. So there. All right. So Let's see what else I want to talk about before I get to the serious stuff here. Everything's serious, but I wanted to talk about one other thing here. Where'd it go? Hold on. I did want to mention this. I forgot to mention her because I was wanted to talk about her because she pleaded. This is a woman named Molly Krebs. She pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter for the drowning death of her 3-year-old son. And remember, I was talking about whether people feel sorrier for women than they do for men when they do things. And I think a lot of times they're able to. I don't know. It's a funny thing. Let me find her story here. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Wait a minute. That's not the one. Okay, wait a minute. I got 2 of them. I want to talk about 2 women. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I found it. It just takes me a while sometimes because I got so much open here. All right. Here's what happened. Okay. She lived somewhere. Okay, anyway. They came and found her 3-year-old son's lifeless body in the bathtub. She admits that she left the child in the bathtub for a long period of time, more than 90 minutes. After a long day of contracting and painting company where she worked, or at the company. I love the way they say long day at the company. Well, if you're not actually painting out there, you're sitting at a desk. I don't think that that's a particularly difficult thing. Krebs told police she was exhausted. She said Jaden, her son, had an allergic reaction to something. And she gave him Benadryl to treat the subsequent hives. So she doesn't know what happened. She gives him Benadryl. What the child was allergic to is unclear. Krebs said she ran a bath, put her son in the tub, and accidentally fell asleep after walking away from the bathroom. When she awoke, her son was unresponsive. She called the police. In court, per footage obtained by the attorney, the attorney characterized the devastating case as completely accidental, saying, "You can see how devastated she is. She could face up to 11 years behind bars." Now, was it accidental? First of all, I don't know why you give your 3-year-old Benadryl and then stick him in a tub and then walk away. I'd like to know how deep the water was. I'd really like to know that. But you're giving your child a medication that can cause sleepiness. You don't put him in a tub. Or you sit there right with him next to the tub. You let him, I don't know why he's in the tub anyway. Is it because he's cooling off the hives? I would love to see the explanation of this. But generally speaking, what you should do is put the kid in the tub, cool off his hives. If it takes 5 minutes or whatever, take him out, give him the Benadryl then, and set him in the bed. Why the heck are you giving him Benadryl and then putting him in a bathtub and walking away and he's falling asleep for 90 minutes, leaving your little child drugged out in a bathtub? That's kind of concerning. I don't know how people are going to view her. That's what kind of always amazes me. Now, let's see if I'll find the other one. This is even worse. And wait till you see what they said, what this one is. Let's see if I have her picture. I forgot to put her picture. Okay, she was an Oregon mother. I think I might have forgot to put her picture up. But wait till you hear this story. This one just blows me away. All right, let me see if her picture is over here. Nope. Okay. Oh, shoot. What am I doing here? Hold on a second. Nope, I forgot to put the picture. Anyway, I'll just show you her picture. There she is. There's a picture. All right. Doesn't really matter. So anyway, her name is Sharda McDonald. Get this one. This is just unbelievable. So there was a phone call, and she answered the door to a police officer. She's holding a child in a blanket. She tells the police officer she was not trying to hurt harm, or kill her son by drowning him or putting him in the freezer. No, I wasn't trying to put him in a freezer. No, I wasn't trying to drown him. Okay, what was she actually doing? Okay, and this is just so appalling. An Oregon mother will serve 30 days in the county jail after entering a guilty plea to criminal mistreatment in the first degree. Now, mind you, remember what I always say, that somehow babies don't get treated as much as older people do when it comes to saying, hey, you should get 30 years in prison. They somehow just seem to, oh, well, So listen to what happened. Officer Curbs arrived at the Gresham Police Department, arrived at the home of Shonda McDonald on October 2021 to perform a welfare check after a report of a, quote, mom putting her baby in the freezer. She would eventually admit that she did put her infant son in the freezer, and she waterboarded him. It's a 13-month-old baby. She waterboarded him. She hoped by doing this, I think she did it online, so it would bring her boyfriend back. Now, the affidavit says that he heard part of the conversation she was having with an unknown individual. He said, this is part of the conversation. I'm about to show you real quick. You don't want him? Let me show you about this little baby. I don't give a blank about it. So apparently what she was doing, there's images of her. It was a video call to her boyfriend, and there were photographs from the video call. One image shows McDonald holding the little one and waterboarding him. Looked like he was trying to hold his breath while water was pouring over his face at a downward angle, where his hips, legs, and feet were higher than his head, and water was running over his face. The only place the water could go in that picture was in his nose at an angle. So she was absolutely waterboarding him. And while driving to the police station, the officer said that McDonald said she was sorry and she did these things to see if her boyfriend gave a blank at all. She was ultimately charged with 2 counts of criminal mistreatment in the first degree and a single count of recklessly endangering another person. They supposedly added 13 counts of identity theft and a count of tampering with a witness, although those alleged crimes came from an unrelated case. So she's a mess. She's a criminal. So anyway, she entered a plea to the charges of criminal mistreatment. The judge sentenced her to 30 days in the Multnomah County Detention Center for the criminal mistreatment. She is torturing her baby, waterboarding him and sticking him in a freezer. She gets 30 days. 30 days. She's going to get out on October 6th. I don't even know what to say. I think the judge should be waterboarded and put in a freezer. I don't think that's a problem. Yeah. You think? Well, see, this is where it comes down to the guy in the jewelry shop again. Attempted murder. Supposedly, you have to prove that the person was actually attempting to murder the person. The guy in the jewelry shop, I guess he was just subduing the guy, and she was just faking out the boyfriend by doing this for a second to her son. She wasn't planning to do it long enough to harm her son. She just wanted to do it enough to freak out her boyfriend. She gets 30 days. Yeah, I go with outrageous. Yeah, she probably will have another kid, like, as soon as she gets out of the jail. Oh my goodness, it's just appalling. Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable. I disagree with that one. It's just unbelievable. And I don't know where the baby ended up. I don't know the rest of the story, but that 30 days was insane. She should have been in prison for a good long time. I would give her 5 to 10. You do that to a baby, you're done. There's just no excuse. And she wasn't, in this case, she didn't hear voices. She just wanted to piss off her boyfriend. Oh, well, if you don't care about him, you should come back. Otherwise, I'm going to torture him. That baby should, and here's one of the things they'll do. They'll put the baby in foster care, and then they'll give her a chance to get herself together and take the baby back. My opinion is that woman should never be near another child. Social services will whip that child away. There's no excuse that she's a psychopath. She's a vicious psychopath, tortured a baby. End of story. She should have no access to children after that. Because it wasn't like the first woman who drowned the baby in the bathtub. Could it have been an accident? Well, she's a very negligent human being if it was an accident. She made very stupid choices if it was an accident. I have problems with it. But let's say they took the child away. She spent some time in prison. Well, the child can't be taken away. He's dead. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. She took the child away already. Sorry. Conflated the two cases. No, the child's dead. So but then the question is, if she has other children, what happens then? Does she come back and just take up where she left off? It gets so complicated when it comes down to parents' rights. But apparently the babies don't have many rights. Children don't have nearly as many rights as the bio parent has, that they can make choices, and there's always that effort to put them back together. And I understand the basic concept of wanting to keep a family together, wanting to let that child retain their birth parent if that birth parent is worth retaining. If that birth parent had some issue that they solved and could be a good parent, I don't have any problem with that. But when you waterboard your kid, you're not to be trusted ever again near a child, ever again. It's appalling. No. The waterboarded baby is alive. He survived. I don't know where he is now. I assume he's in some kind. I don't know if he's with family or whatever. But is she going to get out after 30 days and get the baby back? I don't know. I have to look into this more to see what happens. That's just appalling. Okay, so speaking of child abuse, I was asked to talk about what's her name? Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildrebrant. Those are the ones, the 8 passenger videos that were done, the whole family thing, and how to raise a family, how to have a wonderful marriage, how to raise the kids right, how to be good parents and strict enough parents that your kids don't go amiss. And then she hooked up with this woman. So Ruby Franke was the main person in this show. There she is on the left. There's the kids, she and her husband, and there's the 6 kids. And people loved this show because it was all about their lives. And some of it's very cute. I'd never seen it before. But then supposedly she did this show, and some people had some issues with they thought she was overly tough. And there's a bunch of things that supposedly she did that some people didn't approve of. And then she met this Jodi Hildrebrant. And then she got together with her. And there they are, and they had this really, really strange kind of overly strong relationship. And Jodi Hildrebrant had a practice, a therapeutic practice called Connections. And she did group therapy and then private therapy. And they were like, they're on shows together, and they're like, hey, this is how things should work. And they, how do you deal with these things? And so anyway, some of it I didn't disagree with. And I want to point that out because here's where we get always the claim that everything is a cult. All right. If you don't agree with it, it's a cult. So I'm getting close to the part where if you're going to get mad, you might want to leave. Closing in because I want to talk about cults. A cult, there's always a fine line between what we consider a fraternity, a sorority, a community, and a cult. There are people who pretty much think every religious group is a cult. They'll say the Catholic Church is a cult. Hinduism is a cult. Islam is a cult. Everything is a cult. And then there's, Well, then there's things like Odinism, which could be a cult. I mean, any group of people that gets together and does things that other people think are strange, people will label a cult. Now, there are times when groups of people, over time, and I think this is really the crux of it, and this is, I think, people do not quite understand, is that it seems to be a human thing that when a first group gets together, the rules aren't as strict. Over time, there usually ends up being a power structure, and the rules tend to get stricter and stricter for how we should behave and who can join. That's what keeps a group separate from other groups. If you have a group and you're too lenient about your rules, then that group basically disintegrates, because you can't all have different ideas. Then it's not really a group, is it? So you have ways of doing things. Sororities, fraternities are very much that way. You have to join, you have to pass their muster essentially, and then you have to act in a certain way. Military is the same way. You join, they have to approve of you, then you got to wear a costume, and then you got to follow all the rules, you got to jump through all the hoops. And if you don't do that, then you're ousted, or you're pushed away, mocked, made fun of, humiliated, whatever it's going to be, because the group has to stay strong as the group. You do too much messing around with everything, and then you get too lax, the group just vanishes. So there's a fine line between keeping a group together and getting to be what people call a cult. And then the question is, just because somebody calls it a cult, does it mean it's not a good community for the certain people in it? And so let's say you have this community. I'm not going to give any names of anything, whether it's going to be Scientology, or it's going to be Jehovah's Witnesses, or it's going to be evangelical Christians, or it's going to be a Hindu temple, or it's going to be the Sikhs, Gurdwara that they're, up in Canada, where they got lots of Gurdwaras up there along with India, or a sorority, or a fraternity, or a Masons, or whatever it is. Okay? Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, whatever. People join, and they join because they want to be part of a group. They want to be part of a community. And they join, and they enjoy certain things that now their name is added. And when they come in, they go, hi, hi, Pat, how you doing? Hi, hey. And then you participate in the music or the activities, or the concepts that give you whatever you think, concepts that are positive to you, that make you feel happier, more stable in life, give you encouragement, whatever it is. Even you take Alcoholics Anonymous, AA and NA, that's the same kind of thing. It's a group, it has rules. And then you have to follow those rules. So all these things are groups, and people join them, and they feel, if they like them when they get there. Now, some people come in, I've done this in my life, where I'm going to visit that place. And I visit, and I go, interesting. No, okay, thanks. It was nice seeing you. And I'm never going back. Why? Because I didn't match. I didn't fit. I didn't feel they had something to offer me. But there's other places I felt more comfortable in, and I wanted to stay around a while, and I did. And then at some point, maybe after a couple of years, I felt I didn't fit anymore, or they didn't like me enough to keep me there. Maybe they didn't think I fit. So there became a rift. And sometimes you'll see rifts within an organization or a church, and they'll separate into two different groups because the rift is too strong, and they do that. So, but people join groups because it makes them feel part of a community. That happens all over the world. Every area has those. They have clubs. They have something that make people feel part of something. Even a swim club has, oh my gosh, a swim club I go to. I don't really fit there very well with the people there. They're nice, but I don't really match them as far as personalities or culture goes. But I do like swimming there, and they have their rules. This is the way things are done. And if you join the board, you better be one of their friends. So this is the way they are. Not everything is a cult, except in the eyes of people who think it's a cult. And there are people who join groups, and then after they join them, if they don't get out of that group what they want, they often will turn on the group and say terrible things about them. So I'm just putting that out there just so you can understand that it's not always so black and white. There's that very gray area of who is it dissatisfied people? Is it true? How do they perceive things? Did they join with a certain concept and accept it and then change their minds, and it caused rifts in the wherever, it's convoluted that way and a little confusing, and so you have to be a little careful. So this connections thing with the what's her face? I've got to look at her name again, Jodi Hildrebrant. I thought some of the ideas were perfectly fine. I read some of the concepts, and they're not that bad. They're good concepts about how to take responsibility for your life, and face things, face realism. That's kind of what I always say. Stop. No, be realistic, face things. There are two types of therapists. One type is the type that you go to for many, many years, and you go and you tell your story, and they sympathize with you, and you work on things very slowly. And sometimes I think, why is it taking you so long? Why don't you just say, hey, wait a minute. What is it what's the real problem here? And make a choice. Make a choice. This choice or that choice. Make a choice. That's always been my style. However, and a little bit of connections. I haven't gone deep into connections. That says similar. There's some similar thought there, so I didn't find it terribly offensive. A lot of people who went to the group things and learned from connections really liked it. Some even liked, what's her name again? Jodi Hildrebrant. They liked her. Okay. Then again, some people didn't like her. They found her abrasive, pushy, like you better do this, you got to do that, and they found that offensive. And later on, now that she's in trouble, they say, see, she was always this horrible, she always had bad advice. No, I don't believe that's probably true. And I don't think Franke necessarily was always bad at everything she did, a bad parent, a bad this and a bad that. But here's where things get a little strange. First of all, when you put your family on camera day in and day out, there's already something wrong with it. That's not a family. That's a show. And the fact that you constantly film your kids, that is concerning to me. That, to me, puts her as a kind of a creepy control freak that has some of her ideas are fine. And again, some of the things she did were okay. But the fact that she's constantly controlling this family in video is creepy. And the children have no choice of this. It's almost child abuse, in my opinion. To me, that's unacceptable. And that's one of the things we have in the world today with the internet and all these different ways to put your children on camera and take advantage of them and make money off of them. I also say the same things when you see Dr. Phil shows and somebody brings their 12-year-old, 14-year-old child on, and that child's going, I have the right to have sex with who I want. And the mother's going, that's because you're a slut. Why is your child on that show? And why is that show allowing a child on there? Why is there anybody under 18 on those shows? Unless they're doing something like playing the flute. Why are they talking about their personal lives on national television? That's sick. That's plain sick. I've always been bothered by that. No child should be on national television talking about their personal problems. You take the child to a therapist if you got an issue with that. You don't put it online. That's what Franke was doing. She was showing off her family online. Now she's got the husband who is an adult, in my opinion, who goes along with the program. She runs things. He goes along with the program. So somewhere along the way, these two women hooked up. And I think the Hildrebrant lady here, Jodi Hildrebrant, the one on the left, she, I think, had good ideas. So you take somebody who may be almost psychopathic, highly narcissistic. They can have good ideas. There's a lot of people who create in this world and have good ideas with them, and they can present those, and they're fine at that point. But then the power gets to them, and they start liking to control people, and it starts getting boring just doing the basics. So they start controlling more and more and more because they have a personality disorder. She can't follow her own rules, apparently. You know what I mean? She's making bad choices, and she's not seeing truth and all that crap she talks about. So she can't do what she promotes. But somehow she hooks up with then Franke, and the two of them together kind of remind me of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. You know, separately they were bad enough, but together now they were this power duo, and they were feeding off of each other. And the children became a pain in the ass. You know what I mean? They started getting in the way of their desires in life, and then because they fed off of each other, they started doing things that were more extreme than would be normal. And there was nothing to stop them. So that's what I think happened in that particular instance. So again, I go back to this connections thing. Stop calling it a cult. It's a theory of therapy. And there's a lot of therapists out there who have different styles of therapy. Some of them I like, and some of them I think are hideous. I'm not running around calling every single different therapy technique cult, because everybody has different ideas. But Jodi, went a little farther than she should have in her interactions with people. That's more of a personal level than the actual philosophy. And I know some of the people say, well, there's a religious edge to that. Well, so what? So what? There's nothing wrong with the religious edge. There's a lot of times people go through their therapists that are connected to the religion they go to, and it can be a very positive thing. Again, we got to stop always naming, the religion is bad, and whatever happens, they're bad. It's not necessarily so. It's just that bad people can get hooked up in these things, and bad people tend to have a lot of power because they don't have the scruples, they don't have the ethics to stop themselves and to be, to do what they should do. And that's what I think happened with these two. So I'll go to your comments, and I'm going to go to the next discussion, which is the one you definitely want to leave if you don't want to listen to it. Let's see. No, don't do that, Nikki. And don't do that. Luckily I don't have one, and luckily most of the people who listen to me will focus on the fact that I talk about evidence, and not to just go with your gut, go with emotions and all of that, and to analyze. So, but I'm not always right. That's for damn sure. Let's see what you have to say about Jodi's niece said people like her a lot. She's very personal, but they didn't know what she was really like. Well, you never get anywhere if you're not somewhat personable. That usually helps. And what happens a lot of times is in the beginning, you come across as very personable, but what you're willing to do is something else. I'm watching a telenovela, one of my favorites, called El Señor de los Cielos. It's a narco thing. It's a Señor of the Skies, and the main character is called Aurelio. And dang, he's good looking, and he is slick, and he's got a great smile, and he comes across as such a great guy sometimes, right? So he decides finally, after has a big dinner, and he's got his girlfriend, or I guess his fiance for many years. They have 2 children together, and finally he's going to ask her to marry him. So at the table, he asks her to marry him, and wants to have a big, huge wedding. Isn't it lovely? And so the wedding was all set up and is all gorgeous. But really what he wanted to do at the wedding was kill this guy that he invited to the wedding, because the only way he could get the guy into a place and get him not to be suspicious was to have an event big enough that the guy would be willing to come. So the guy came, and then he poisoned him, and he died. So and then later on, the wife goes, how can I trust you? Did you just have this wedding so you could kill somebody? And he's like, no, I didn't do that, honey. But he's really good at it. But you see, he's got a good personality until he kills you, and he lies and manipulates all over the place. But that's one of the shows I like, because he comes across exactly the way I think somebody who could control people would come across. Friendly enough, and not and enough that you think, wow, they I can trust them, or I like them. I like being around them. So, yeah. That is the way it works sometimes. Let's see. The Duggars, yeah. Yeah, it's just creepy. It is. It's creepy. No, it's creepy where they ended up. But again, people will then take the ideas, which are 95% fine. I mean, they had some stricter ideas about how to raise the kids. I also had those ideas. I was fairly strict parent in many ways. And, there aren't all bad ideas to how to have your children. I also homeschooled my 3 children all the way through. So again, homeschoolers are a cult. No, they're not. They're people who chose to homeschool for many different reasons. And my kids grew up okay. And my friends' kids grew up okay. And, we chose to do it. But so somebody, now once in a while you'll get that person, they're homeschooling because they're abusing their child and can't let the child go to school because the child will have bruises on them and all kinds of things. Then you homeschool them. And so people see, look what happened to that homeschool kid. No. It wasn't homeschooling that did it. The person used homeschooling in order to do it. So you can take perfectly good ideas and abuse them. So it happens. It happens personal level. It happens in family level. It can happen in therapeutic level. You get a guy who has great ideas to help this woman until he sleeps with her. So, so I just want to differentiate that because this is where we conflate all these different issues, and then we lose track of what could be true and what may not be true. And we just assume this is the way it is. So, all right. So, some weird stuff. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going on to the topic, the final topic of the day. And if this upsets you, I have no problem with you leaving. Make yourself happy. But I am going to talk about what I want to, because I did this whole thing on, what's his face? Forgot his name now. Okay. Masterson. Sorry, Danny Masterson. So the thing I did on Danny Masterson, what I was trying to explain, is not that I don't have sympathy for victims of sexual assault, but that we have to, as a court system and as a justice system, make sure that the person who is being convicted on solid evidence and not stuff that you cannot prove or is something you emotionally connect to, or bunches of gossip, or even the machinations of people getting together and doing a lot of squirrely stuff to then take somebody down for many reasons. And it's funny because the Innocence Project probably won't touch any of those cases, but they will touch murder. They'll take serial killers and try to get them out. And people will say, well, we think Scott Peterson's innocent. There wasn't enough evidence to convict him, but we'll take a guy like Danny Masterson, take some commentary from 20, 30 years ago and say, this is enough to convict him. And one of the reasons is because they're adding in Scientology as this big all-consuming power that made the women do the not report and all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to get to that in a minute because I want to talk about the whole way things work. But I want to stop just for a second and talk about, because it's happening again, and it's this guy now, Russell Brand. All right. So he now is under fire, under horrific fire, and he's got people coming out of the woodwork saying he abused me too, sexually assaulted me too, and he said he was a sex addict sometime, and he's had a wild life, a very wild life. And this is something. Let me see if I can find the thing on that I wanted to look at here. Hold on a second. Where'd it go? Hold on. He did have a kind of, and I want to point out the wildlife thing. If you ever take a look at rock stars, you know how many women some of those rock stars have been to bed with? In the thousands. They're fans that chase them all over the place. Those girls want to sleep with those guys so badly, and those guys take advantage of it. Is it disgusting? Yeah, I think so. Is it ethical? I guess if it's two adults, they have a right to do it, but it's not. It's sleazy. But if a girl's like, oh my God, I'm going to be with whatever rock star. Oh my God, and she's willing to go to his place, and he's like, hey, let's have some drinks and let's have sex. That's what they do. Okay. Later on, she may regret it, but is it illegal? No. And is it sexual assault? No. So the problem is you got this whole party life that goes on in a lot of these places. Before I get to Brand, let me just explain the party life, just so you can see where that's coming from. Remember that picture I showed you of me in the first part? Yeah, 19 years old. I did not go to many parties when I was in Hollywood. But my one memory, which still stays with me, I had this guy, I met this producer I don't know, I was doing extra work. So I met this producer somewhere and he said, hey, come with me to this party. Now this may be incorrect. From what I remember, it was Richard Dreyfuss's house, but he wasn't in town. So somebody was staying there, or was one of his extra houses. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't even his. I'm just putting that there because I remember that name to do with his house. All I know is his house was big. It was fancy, and it had a swimming pool that had glass sides that if you were down in the basement area, you could watch the girls people swim around. And some of the girls kind of like didn't have tops on. I think mostly they kept the bottoms, but I think a lot of them were topless swimming around. I remember this because this picture was in my head. So he takes me to this party and what he's doing is he's talking about how he's going to get me into movies. I'm 19 years old. I'm like, oh my God, maybe it's going to happen. I'm going to be in the movies. I won't be an extra forever. I finally get a speaking role and I'd be good at this. I had never, ever acted in my life. I didn't even do plays at school. So, but I wanted to do it. I like to be in TV. And so I did my extra work, but it turned out that if you weren't part of the casting couch, you didn't get past extra work. And that is a pretty horrible thing that happens in Hollywood. So anyway, I'm at this party and I remember sitting downstairs and there was like this big, some kind of couch thing that went around this way and around went this way. And there were guys there who were actors, producers, a lot of older guys. And then there were all these girls. I don't know how many of them, but they were like sitting next to these guys. Like I was sitting next to the guy who brought me. And some of the girls were like all up against the guys. They were all drinking. Everybody had a drink. I don't remember if I had a drink or not because I wasn't much of a drinker. And then this is where it all comes down to. Then they started passing a bowl of pills around. Some of those were Quaaludes. Remember the Bill Cosby story? Some of those were Quaaludes, and they were being passed around. And I did not touch it. And that producer said, here. And I said, no. I saw the other girls take those. And then some of those girls disappeared with those guys into back rooms. Now, those girls weren't forced to take those pills. They took them of their own volition. And they went in the back room with the hopes that whoever they were sleeping with, for even if it was 15 minutes, whoever they were having sex with would remember them. And then would invite them to do more things, to be maybe in the movies, maybe do this show or whatever. They were hoping to ingratiate themselves by sleeping with them. That's the way it was working. And when I refused to take the pills from the producer, he dumped me just like that. And then the other time I went over to Universal Studios and went there, the producer was a police story. And I was going to play part of a prostitute. I guess I could play that part at that age. And he asked me for dinner. And I said, I'm sorry, I have a previous engagement. And he just laughed at me and he threw my resume across the desk and said, well, when you get into the union, come back, sweetie. I wasn't going to play the game. And I didn't get any work. I never did. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying I was overly talented or anything, but I never got a job in Hollywood past extra work. And I left Hollywood and went back to college because I realized it was stupid. But most of the girls I met were sleeping with almost every guy. And they were like, well, we got to do it. We got to do it because we want to get somewhere. This is the way it works. All right. So there's an awful lot of girls who do this. They do it because they want to be part of the scene. They take the drugs along with the alcohol because there's a level of discomfort when you're totally sober, and you don't, you're like, you have to go to bed with some guy you're not really attracted to. You're going to do things with him, and you know what I mean, that aren't really pleasant. Essentially, you're prostituting yourself. That's all it comes down to. You're prostituting yourself, only instead of getting paid, you're hoping for a break in the business. So they take the drugs because it blurs everything, makes everything fun and crazy, and they don't have to be that. They can just not be so horrified by what they're doing. It lowers their inhibitions and makes it easier. Everything gets easier. All right. So many times the people in this industry offer drugs. They don't put them in the person's drink. They don't need to. This is what I keep trying to explain this to people. They don't need to do it. They only have to offer. And even Bill Cosby admitted he offered it to the women. And they took it. And do you think those women went over to his place when his wife wasn't home and took drinks and took Quaaludes with him and didn't think they were going to have sex? It's ridiculous. Of course they were going to have sex. They knew it. So the problem is, this is the world. And the world that Russell Brand is in, the world that Danny Masterson was in all those years was Hollywood. Hollywood, drinking, sex, drugs, all that stuff all rolls together. There's very few people out there. You find them. Amazing actors and actresses who actually don't participate in that. And I credit them because just to stay clean from all this nonsense is hard. But for these men, when they're stars, girls want to sleep with them. They do. They want to be with them. And if they don't really want to sleep with them, they still want to be with them. They have hopes that if I hang with them, things will happen. If I go to the party, things will happen. Isn't it cool? I'm part of the gang. And so that's where the thing gets blurry. Were they raped, or were they participating in sexual stuff under the influence that didn't turn out to be very pleasing, perhaps? Or they were mad because they never got anywhere after they did it. Or they hooked up for a while and then it just all went bad. Or they realized that next day that person was with somebody else. And, there's all kinds of things that go on in the heads of people who get caught up in this whole industry of Hollywood. And so this is where, in my opinion, I'm not fond of the Me Too thing, because I think Me Too means that you can go back in time and make claims that cannot be proven. They cannot be proven. Even if other people say, oh yeah, well, they told me at that time they had a bad time. That isn't even provable. And unless I would like a new term. I would like to call it report now. Report now. So what happens is, when we were talking about the Masterson thing, is if these acts happen the way a couple of these women said they did, like one said, I got woozy from some drugs he gave me, and he performed an act on me that was painful and I didn't want, and obviously did not stop, but maybe because she said she was too out of it to do so. That's what she says. If she had immediately gone to the hospital and gotten the rape kit done and had her blood test taken, they could have proven if she had been roofied, given something that was unusual. They could have found if there were damages to her body, fissures, bruises, rips, abrasions, something that looked like more than consensual. And of course, sometimes when you're completely out of it, your body doesn't respond much, so there isn't much damage. So I'm not saying you can always prove it. And then you can also look for semen. And the simple fact that if you went straight from there, as soon as you could get out, to the hospital, and then you had the police come in and you told the story right away, maybe then you can prove something that actually happened. But if you come back 20 years later, you can say somebody drugged you, but there's no proof somebody drugged you, and there's no proof it wasn't consensual, and you never went to the doctor. And even if you do report now and it doesn't, the police go, we can't prove that as a he said, she said. Is there any way we can prove that it wasn't consensual? And the girl's like, well, not really. Okay. They may not be able to go in and do anything about it, but you'll be on record. And if you're on record for that, and then 3 years later, another woman reports, you start seeing the links because they're reporting, not because later on everybody got together and decided, hey, we can let's talk about it now. And one of the things that happened with Masterson, and I read this, because this really struck me. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, don't go away from me. Okay. One of the things that bothered me was what happened in 2017 to set this stuff off? And my point was this: people don't like Scientology. And there came to this point where people were starting to hate on Scientology, and Leah Remini came out and did that A&E, I think it's A&E show, whole series, very convincing series where she was like totally anti-Scientology. Here's all the horrifying things that happened in this cult. She comes out and does that. Now, this is, first of all, we have documentaries, and I would say a lot of them are very agenda-oriented. They're very biased. And I'm not saying she wasn't correct or a lot about things she said. I have no idea. I never saw it, and I'm not saying she's right or wrong. But that came out. When you put that together with the media and attorneys, then you have this threesome that come together. And then the question is, how much of this is manipulated? And I started reading this thing, and apparently it came out. Oh, I got to find it. Okay, come back. And I thought it was fascinating. So this came out. It's called The Underground Bunker. This is from Tony Ortega, is a journalist of some sort. In Scientology, you get to blame everything on your trillion-year-old mental booby traps. Anyway, it's a thing, it's anti-Scientology. But anyway, they talk about a lot of different things. But now, then it becomes, let's see if I can find it. Okay, wait a minute. Well, wait a minute. Did this just shift? Okay, wait a minute. What happened here? Hold on a second. I think I've accidentally clicked on something. Okay. Sorry. LAPD. Wrong article. I hit the wrong button. LAPD probing Scientology and Danny Masterson for multiple rapes and a cover. All right. Listen to the first line. Victims came forward after reaching out to actress Leah Remini as a result of her A&E series. There we go. So Leah Remini comes out and says this stuff. It's a big deal. Now, anybody who has had any contact with Scott Masterson, went to a party with him, went to bed with him, lived with him, whatever, now they've got Leah Remini. All right. Okay. Then they complained they were being pressured by Church of Scientology to keep quiet about their claims and were being punished for being victimized. And this all goes with the Remini stuff. All right. And then they claim that LAPD was compromised by its relationship with the Church of Scientology, which I find odd anyway. But okay, so listen to how this starts out. Let's see. All right, one person we did hear from is actress Leah Remini, whose recent A&E series was the key reason that the women came forward. Before Remini's series even began airing, there was much publicity about it, and she and her co-star began hearing from people who had never previously come forward about allegedly being victimized by the church. So you see, this opens the doors to, hey, you can now come and complain. Now, some of you have every reason to complain, but how do you know who is who? All right. One of them told Remini about her claim of being attacked by Masterson. Remini tells us she said to the woman, who we are calling Victim A, that it was time for people to take action and encourage Victim A to file a police report. Now, this is all these years later. So now you got Leah Remini running this thing, all right? And she's got massive publicity. She's got the media. And let me tell you, when I try to find any information about certain cases, you can't get through the 50 pages of one-sided stuff because the media has certain issues that they follow and promote. And anti-Scientology is huge. So anything about anti-Scientology, and again, I'm not a Scientologist, I'm not fond of it, it doesn't do anything for me, but this is where the media goes. And they will jump on every story. And now Leah Remini is the leader of this big fight against Scientology. So one of these women was Victim A, okay. When she did, Remini got, so she gave the police report. She got the woman to give their police report. When she did, Remini got personally involved in the investigation. Why? You're not a detective. What are you doing personally involved? Which soon grew when 2 additional women were added to it. One of those women, Victim B, had filed a report in 2004. This is the only one that actually filed originally. After her rape, her claim, occurred in 2003. The investigation was closed when witnesses who were Scientologists contradicted the victim's testimony. Essentially, she went to a party at his house. They had this big party. At one point, she went upstairs with him, claiming like she had been she was claiming maybe she had something. And then she said she came down and supposedly said something had happened. I don't know if she said she was raped or what. She said something happened with him. And most of the people at the party thought she was drunk. So they didn't see that anything had happened. All right. Now, just because they're Scientologists doesn't mean they're protecting him. It just means they probably didn't believe what she had to say at the time she said it. Now, Could it have happened? Yes. And they just didn't believe it because they're thinking, oh, come on now. Danny's not going to do that. It's possible. Maybe he had him, you know, he was good at faking stuff. You know what I mean? As an actor, you know, maybe he played the great guy and could change roles just like that. But they didn't see it. They didn't see anything happen. So the police asked them, did they see anything? And they said, no, we just think she was drunk. And so there was nothing to go on at that point. And so there wasn't a further investigation. I'm not saying the police were right. They didn't really go anyplace. That's the only one that has the most validity. But then we get, now goes further, and it says, after several months, victim A became increasingly frustrated with the investigation. She wrote a big long letter. She was all mad. She had been in a relationship with Danny Masterson and claimed that he had done things to her during the relationship she didn't like. But she continued in the relationship for years. I mean, it's like, I was sleeping and he did something to me and he laughed, haha. I'm sorry. I always find this kind of funny. You know, there's this whole thing now. For example, if you put something in, let's say I think they have this new thing happening like Pornhub, right? If you go in there and put in something that shows a non-consensual issue, let's say, I don't know, woman, okay, but this is the example. Woman asleep, man having sex with woman asleep. Somebody thinks it's like cool, the woman's, and then he comes, sneaks on to her, you know what I mean? There are a lot of people who enjoy that. There are a lot of women who enjoy when they're waking up, their husbands are suddenly doing something. Some husbands like it when their wives do something while they're still sleeping and wake up going, woo. That's not necessarily right because you're in a relationship and you have this sort of agreement thing going on. And if you don't agree with it, then either the person doesn't do it ever again or stops when they should. And if they don't, then you leave them because they suck. So if Danny Masterson did things to her she didn't appreciate sexually in the relationship, she got out of there. I don't call that sexual assault. Sorry, I have a problem with it. So I think I could throw her out right there. And they didn't convict on her, the basis of her. They did it for the one who did the 2004 report. And then there was the victim C. Where did victim C come from? So another victim came through, victim C, and said that, what did she say had happened? Can't remember what victim C was. I'm trying to find, it's a long article. It's a very long article. So I can't find victim C, but victim C did not report and claimed that she had an uncomfortable time when she was with Danny Masterson, that she did not consent to the sexual happening. But she didn't go to the hospital. She didn't report. So now here's the interesting thing. Once Leah Remini comes out with this, anybody who was messed over by Scientology and anybody connected with Scientology, come here and tell me. You know, she got 20 some years. So apparently it's just during this 2002 to 2003, 2004, you got some people, women who said I was with him back then and back in the day. It's a long time ago. And it wasn't like 100 women with proof. I mean, we're talking about a couple stories. Now, I'm not saying the stories are not true. What I'm saying is this guy just got a life sentence for a claim of 2 sexual assaults without proof. We don't know whether they were semi-consensual, fully consensual, not consensual. We just don't know. We don't know what these women's perceptions were when they were in that situation. Were they really drugged or did they take some drugs? Did they take more drugs than they thought? Was there an expectation? They went up to his bed and he thought they were going to have sex and she thought, oh, I didn't know if I wanted to do this. I don't know. Wasn't there, can't say. All I know is a lot of women get into bed with men they don't really want to get into bed with and they regret it later. Then again, some guys are pushy. You know, she says, oh, I don't really want to do that. But he pushes her bed and goes, come on, honey. And he pushes her on the bed and he starts kissing her. And then the things go and they end up having sex, or he ends up having sex with her, but not with her, with a clear consent. That does happen. But there's just the proof problem is where I have an issue with. And this is where I've pointed out there's other cases where the proof is just ridiculous. We see these things in political attacks as well. Kavanaugh, some woman pops out of there and says, "I was a party," and what, he touched her boob or something like that. I mean, so ridiculous, and yet that's going to railroad his career. We got President Trump. I don't care if you like him or don't like him. Some woman pops out from behind, says, "Oh, from you, all these years ago, he pulled me. We went into a changing booth and kissed, and then he went too far." How do we know this? Just because you say this, I mean, this is insane. I'm not saying that this makes a person. I'm not saying the person couldn't have done it. I'm just saying making claims like that is scary as heck. I have 2 sons, and I would hate to see that some woman pops out of the woodwork 10 years from now and says, "Oh, 10 years ago when we worked together, he did this to me," and she cries, and it's so believable that he goes away, and maybe by that time he's married and has 2 kids, and now he's got to go to prison for something he may not have done. Hopefully didn't do, because they're my sons, but because somebody said he did it. And okay, so I think I don't know. I read this to some people before, but I just want to read it again because I put this up years. It was back in 2016 when I did this. Go back to my picture. This will be the end of this, but I just want to point this out because I was shocked when this happened. So there I am. That's what I looked like when I worked in Hollywood. Okay, and here's my story. I did this on another show, but I'm just going to read to you. This was called "Did Tommy Chong," which is Cheech and Chong fame, sexually assault criminal profiler Pat Brown. I'm going to read to you my story. When I was 19 years old, I wished to become an actress in Hollywood. One day on the set of Cheech and Chong, I was asked to stand in for an actress who was getting her hair done. I was told to lie on the bed with Tommy Chong, with his sheets and duvet covering us both. My side of the covers pulled over my face so that during the filming, it would not be noticed that I was body doubling for the actress. While under the covers with Chong, I felt his hand cut my breast and then travel down my body between my legs. He grabbed my hand and placed it on his penis and rubbed it up and down, and I was mortified. And I didn't know what to do because the cameras were rolling and there were people all around. I was only 19 and naive and not very versed in how to deal with sexual assault, a sexual assault that occurred with a group of men surrounding the bed, a group of men who were friends with Mr. Chong, a famous actor and comedian, and me, a nobody that they could care less about. I remained paralyzed under the sheet while Chong laughed with the crew and continued to move his hands and mine wherever he wanted. When they finished filming and the actress I was standing in for came into the room, I was summarily dismissed, and I got out of the bed and I pulled my dress down in front of everybody. I was crying, but no one even looked at me, and I ran from the room. I was so traumatized by the experience that I left Hollywood and my dreams, and over the years I had to seek counseling, as I didn't trust men after that. I only told my sister and father what happened because they asked me why I left Hollywood so abruptly and gave up my long-desired acting career. I didn't come forward years ago because I was just an extra in the film industry, and I knew no one would believe me over Tommy Chong, who was loved and admired by many. But now that I too have been on television for many years, and I am more mature and able to handle the fallout, I want to come forward and let people, especially other women who may have been abused by Mr. Chong, to know what happened to me and encourage others to come forward if they had had a similar experience. I want to let the public know that no one should get away with sexual assault just because they're famous and the victim is not. I hope coming forward will help others deal with sexual abuse and bring their abusers to justice. And that's what I wrote, 2016. Comments? So I want your thoughts on that. I will wait patiently. There must be somebody with thoughts. Nobody has thoughts. Aunt Deanie. Are you sure you've never done any acting, Pat? You're very good. Lots of laughs. No, never been an actress. I am shocked. And it's interesting if you actually look at the last time. I actually did this before, and I'm sorry you went through that. What are you sorry I went through, Jamie? What are you sorry I went through? We are struck dumb. What do you think I went through? That was sad and poignant. Yeah. Horrible experience, huh? But I made it all up, and it took me 5 whole minutes to write it. That's what I'm talking about. That's complete garbage. And none of that ever happened. It took me 5 minutes to write that. 5 minutes. And I didn't work hard. Last time I actually acted this thing out, I almost cried. And people were like, oh my God, blah. Okay, so I made it up. That's the point. But the thing was, when I first wrote it, it's a skirt. Yeah. I literally sat down and just wrote it. And then I put it up, and I got a call from one of the top lawyers. I can't remember which one it was. What is it? With Michael Jackson's lawyer, somebody big. Because I did Nancy Grayson called me up and said, I'll represent you against Tommy Chong. And I'm like, holy crap, what are you talking about? What? No, Tommy Chong didn't do anything to me. He's a perfect gentleman. Oh my God. I thought, now here's what I wrote underneath it. I wrote this, and on the side of Tommy Chong, what would be his defense? No one remembers Pat Brown on the set while the movie was being filmed. That's true. Nobody remembered me being there because it was so long ago. No one remembers an incident in which Tommy Chong was in bed with Pat Brown. Again, they wouldn't remember it. Now, I was in bed with Tommy Chong, but nobody remembered. No one remembers an incident in which an upset young person jumped from the bed with her dress up over her waist and ran crying from the room. Nobody remembers that. The father of Pat Brown is dead. Therefore, he cannot testify to what she said years ago. So just because I claimed I told my father doesn't mean I actually told my father, because he's dead and you can't prove it. But on the other hand, even if this supposedly did happen, I could have told them anything about why. I could have left Hollywood and I could have told them Tommy Chong sexually molested me. That's why I left Hollywood. Not wanting to say I just sucked as an actress. I couldn't get work. I could have lied just to get people feel sorry for me. It was why I was a failure. See, you can't even tell if somebody said something 20 years ago. You don't know if it's true. They just be making up a story so people will believe them and get themselves out of some other issue that they don't want to admit. So yes, even if Pat Brown claimed years ago Tommy Chong sexually assaulted her, there's no way of knowing if this is truthful or just a fantastical claim of Pat Brown's to gain attention or to explain to her family her failure in Hollywood as an actress. And no one knows if Pat Brown and her sister, she's my sister, she'll lie for me. No one knows if Pat Brown and her sister are telling the story in order to achieve notoriety or money. So people are saying, oh, Danny Masterson, he paid off one of these women a bunch of money. Well, yeah. If I got that top lawyer and they went to Tommy Chong and said, this Pat Brown, this criminal profiler, for God's sakes, she was in Hollywood. She says you did this to her. She's going to go out there and tell this story to the world. I might have a lot of money. Let me look around my house. Yeah, no, I didn't do it. Didn't get any money from Tommy Chong. This could all be quiet now because Tommy Chong could have given me a few $100,000. I mean, he's got money. So maybe my lawyer goes to there and says, look, she's going to tell this story. And he pays it. And then people say, well, he wouldn't have paid it if it wasn't true. And that's not the way it works. All right. Okay, now we have this other problem. Now, once I've said this, it's public now that Pat Brown was supposedly sexually assaulted by Tommy Chong. Now, if other women come forward now, do you believe them? Because now they're like, oh, Pat Brown's out there. She said this about Tommy Chong. There may be money in this. Hey, I could say I was out in Hollywood too. I also was sexually assaulted by Tommy Chong. I went to a party that Tommy Chong was at. Let's say they actually did go to a party Tommy Chong was at or went on a date with him. All they have to do is say, well, when that was happening, he assaulted me. So they may have had a contact with Tommy Chong And they can say anything at that point of what happened then. They could have had sex with Tommy Chung, but now they're going to say it was rape. That's why I'm bothered by this, because I know this can happen. Once that information goes out, once Leah Remini said, give us your stories, and put basically Danny Masterson on the table, sacrificial table, hey, people can say anything. It's not necessarily so, and it's even not necessarily so back then, which is why these he said, she says are hard to prove. All right, a little bit more. Do you think this is a story the media should spread and a case Gloria Allred should take up since no police report was ever filed? So if there were 4 police reports against Tommy Chung, my police report and 3 other women, we didn't know each other, and the police reports were filed years ago, that would be interesting. But there's no such thing. Now, because people believed me when I put this out, I was shocked. I thought people knew this was just a you know, I was just putting this out there to give an example. And I actually had to put a disclaimer. I just received a phone call offering me legal representation against Tommy Chung. The post is fiction. It is meant to make people think twice about media stories in which a famous person is accused of sexual assault without proof. I was not assaulted by Tommy Chung or any other famous person that I remember. Maybe I was drunk. No, I just added that on. But sexual assault is a very, very terrible thing. And I was sexually assaulted when I was at 12. I think I told this story too. I was in a fun house, and a guy, one of those dark fun houses, and I was walking through. My friend was in front of me, and a guy behind me put his arm around me in the dark, and he grabbed me and put his hands underneath my clothes and in places so he shouldn't be. And I broke free and slammed into a bunch of walls. He caught me again, did the same thing again, and I escaped from the fun house at that point. And I have no idea who the guy was. I couldn't report it because what was the point? So I know you don't forget it, but on the other hand, I sort of accepted it. Was like, well, you know, it was unpleasant. I didn't like it, but it was way less than what other women have gone through. Other women have been through sexual assaults that are way, way worse than that. I was a very logical person even back then. I went, well, that sucked, but I guess that just happened, and that's that. And I let it go. But then again, I wasn't. Some people call that rape these days because they call everything rape, but I just call finger insertion. I don't call rape. Sorry. I think it's, rape to me requires something a little bit more. And so I'm thankful that I wasn't raped, that I wasn't pulled into some dark corner in there, which everything was dark, but where the guy could assault me for a long period of time and cause damage to me and do all those horrible things. And so this was a sort of minor assault, if you want to call it. I was only like 12, so it wasn't something I was expecting or appreciated. But I have sympathy for people who've been through sexual assault. But I just also know that if you're going to look at things legally and you're going to take people to court, you have to, in my opinion, have to have physical proof of this, or solid. Hey, if a woman had taped him saying, Danny Masterson, and she called up and said, look, you drugged me and raped me last night. And he goes, oh, sorry about that. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, I did, but hey. Okay, put him away. He admitted it. But there's no such admission. There's no tape. There's no videotape. There's no audio tape. There's just not enough. And I don't know the guy. He could be a slime bag and a half. And there's a lot of slimy guys in Hollywood. But there's a difference between slimy guys and guys committing criminal acts. And I just don't think you should charge people with a criminal act unless you can prove it. And someday, say it could be your son, it could be your husband who gets accused of this. I know already my ex, when we were together, he was a soccer coach, and he was like, I will never be alone with a boy, ever. He was so terrified of that. He was like, I will never, ever be alone. And remember the old days, you could pick up a kid and take him to baseball practice in your vehicle? My husband was like, that ain't happening. Because he was so scared that he would be accused of something. And once he's accused, especially kids can accuse people of things too that they didn't do. And that man will go to prison for 10 years and would be a child sex predator when he didn't do anything. And that's a scary thing too. So it is again that there are children who are being sexually abused by adults. It's horrific. But we have to say that that's horrific, but it's also horrific to have false accusations or people being imprisoned and lives ruined. Right now, Russell Brand, he these women are coming out now saying he did this. YouTube has already demonetized him. And people are like, yay. And I'm like, I'm horrified. Now, I don't know what Russell Brand did. I haven't seen proof yet of what he did. This seems to be the same kind of thing. The people are accusing him of things. But they've just demonetized him. They just killed his job. Killed his job. And other places are killing his job too. How would you like it if you went to work and you're going to work, or let's say you're working, you're a professor at a college, and some woman from 20 years ago comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, he raped me. And you just get fired. Boom, just like that, without going to court, without any proof. You just lose your job. And now people will look at you as like you're a sex predator, you're a rapist. I think that's pretty horrific. I think that's wrong. And I understand that we can have suspicions or concerns and we should want things to be investigated. But this jump on this whole thing where we take people down one after the other based on no information, no proof is concerning to me. And I stand by that. So I know some people were upset when I did the last one, and some people will be upset again. But I will stand by, you have to have proper evidence. So my hashtag would be report now. And I mean now, by now, not now, 20 years later. Now, right after it happens, report it then. Or maybe it should be called report then. If something happens to you that you think is that bad, you should be right there in the hospital and police station. And even if you don't, if they can't charge the guy, they might be able to have it on record. And if they do charge the guy because there is proof, you've just saved other women from going through that. If you don't like what you went through, why do you want other women to go through that? Why are you going to take 20 years to whine? I'm sorry, it's just not right. And it's not fair to a defendant has a right to defend himself. And if the charge doesn't come in for 20 years, and it's based on somebody telling a story, there's no way to know if that story is absolutely accurate, especially when you bring on board hatred for Scientology and Leah Remini pushing this stuff out there and telling, come on, people. The whole thing stinks. And I mean, he may be a creep and maybe he did do something wrong, but I don't approve of the way it's all been handled. I didn't approve it with Bill Cosby. I didn't approve it with Kavanaugh, Trump, and those people, because none of them had any real proof. And it bothered me. So, sometimes there's real proof. When there is, have at it, have at it. But this new methodology is concerning, because they'll fight harder to get a serial killer out of prison than somebody claims sexually abused them. And they'll give him even a longer sentence, which, I was shocked at the sentence. That's a long damn sentence he got, based on 2 stories. And by the way, the Scientology thing about them refusing to let them go to the police and all that stuff. First of all, a lot of times when women go to somebody and say this happened, they don't know whether to believe that. They don't want, and this is not just Scientology. This can be at church. This can be a school. It can be a business. It can be your family and your friends. Don't go to the police. Why? Because first of all, it's embarrassing to us. You're going to ruin somebody's life a lot of people's lives, unless you can prove it's true. Can you prove it's true? And you're like, oh, I don't really have any proof. Well, then don't go there, because first of all, they're not going to take it to court. And secondly, you're going to put yourself through a lot of humiliation. And third, it's just not going to go well. So a lot of people will say, don't go do that. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't report. I'm very strong on reporting if you have evidence to report immediately. But it's not just Scientology that suggests these things, like it's not worth reporting, or, hey, we'd rather you not. And even if somebody tells you, well, if you report, we're going to chuck you out of Scientology. Well, make your decision then. Do you want to stay in Scientology, or do you want to report a rape? I mean, it's not nice. It's not fair, but nothing ever is. So you make a choice. You make the choice, just because somebody encourages you not to do something, unless they literally put a gun to your head. And again, I don't even know how true all of this stuff is. I know it's an organization. They wield a lot of power and all that stuff, but people are in that organization. They choose to be there. They can leave. As far as I know, they can leave. I don't think they're shot if they leave. But are they Stockholm syndrome? Maybe. But again, you just charging somebody with a crime when you don't have evidence for it outside of a story is terrifying to me. Even if he were guilty, it's still terrifying to me that you would be able to convict somebody on what I considered not very strong evidence. I think it's frightening and a bad trend. I think we need to push for reporting and stop accusing people 20 years later too. Report. I think there should be a limit on that. If you don't report that right away, I don't think you should be able to come back and report it just after a certain point. And then that person can't defend themselves. I think they don't have time and wouldn't even remember what happened or where they were, to be able to defend themselves. It's great. It's craziness to me. And I will stand by that. And I know some people don't like it, but I stand by it because I believe in evidence. Okay. So anyway, let's see. Lex says it's too late for Masterson. Well, he might go for an appeal. I don't know. Again, there's a whole societal feeling that is so strong. It's hard to get, first of all, it's hard to get a jury. The first one found him, that was a hung jury. Now they went back and got him the second time. This is where you get yourself a new jury that'll go for it. This is why I don't like this whole concept of, again, civilian juries, which run on emotion. And when the women cry on the stand, I mean, look how many people I got to believe when I did this. And when I read it, even people believe it. And if I really put my effort into it, you would have really felt bad for me. You would have. I know you would have. See, I can even do that in 3 seconds, and I'm not even good at it. I'm not even working up. If I'm going to court, you work up the tears and all that stuff. You can fall apart in court and have people believe you just like that. So a lot of these people, I don't know if any of them are actors and actresses. You know what I mean? So he was an actor. So anyway. Timing, it seems too coincidental given Masterson, the Russell Brand thing. Yeah. A court of public opinion. Yeah. It's just overly scary. And I don't know why. I know women who've been victimized tend to obviously lean toward believe women, which that's, I say, just take a Sherry Papini right there. You can't just believe women any more than you believe men. I don't believe Danny Masterson. But I don't necessarily believe the women either, because I don't know who's telling the truth. I'm looking for evidence, don't have it. I can't come to a conclusion. I would have found him not guilty just because I wouldn't know. That was reasonable doubt, in my opinion, because you have nothing. Except you got a lot of people there saying stuff. A very volatile courtroom situation with people who hate Scientology, who've, like the ex-girlfriend who, obviously they broke up. So, they always have their stories. And how bad, how is it as bad as she says too? There's always these levels of things too. People say a person touched me. Well, it touched you in what way? Accidentally brushed against you or did this, you know what I mean? Which one is it? And are you exaggerating or did you see it differently? So all that stuff is very confusing unless you have it on video. But then you got a guy on video beating a man to a pulp and apparently, that's not attempted murder. Go figure. Well, so maybe they can. There's everything in the world comes to the fact that things can make your life hell. Why do you think people have trouble getting divorced? Because sometimes your life is hell. You lose money. You have to fight over the kids. You get screwed in the divorce. And the person might say, if you divorce me, I'm giving you nothing. And then can you fight it? Well, maybe not. So you lose. That's life. That's life. There's a lot of people that make your life hell, and not just Scientology. That's always what I'm trying to point out here. If you're in Scientology and you made the choice to be there, one of the things we take away from people is that they seem to have no agency of their own anymore. It's like, I don't know how I ended up getting raped in that guy's room. Well, did you go up in the room and get naked and get in bed with him? Yes. Were you drunk? Yes. Did you say no? No. But he raped me. Oh. No, women have to start making choices for themselves. And I'm sorry that you all want to think that you can just act any way you want, going to just get blazing drunk, do drugs, Go with guys into private places, guys you do not know. It's not safe. I'm not saying the guy is right, but we keep too many women keep putting themselves time after time after time after time into situations which are not great. There's reasons that there used to be in the old days where you didn't do that crap. You dated a nice boy. You got to know him at school, whatever. You didn't go out drinking at bars and going home with every guy that was there, because I know some people can go to a bar now and they can count how many people they slept with in that bar. I'm sorry that this kind of stuff leads to a whole bunch of other stuff, which is not healthy. So you want a better life, stop doing that stuff. I mean, and I'm not, again, going to the blaming the victim thing. I'm just saying that's how people do get victimized, because they think they don't have to make choices that are safe for themselves. They think that other people shouldn't make bad choices. They can make all the bad choices in the world, but other people shouldn't make them. That's crazy. You have to start you make your own choices. You want to join Scientology, then you make that choice. You want to join any group, you make that choice. You want to be in a sorority or a fraternity, and a fraternity starts acting like goons, walk away. You chose to join the dang thing. Well, that was your choice. And then you chose not to walk away. That's your thing. This is the thing. We used to have a thing called personal responsibility, and we have to get back to that. You just have to, because that's how you stay safe. And that's how you have a lot less of this crap going on. So that is true. Some people are raised in the religion. This is true. I don't want to get into Scientology stuff. I don't want to sit here and say what they do and they don't do. Some of this stuff is true. Some of it's exaggerated. So I don't want to get into all of that. Yes, some people are born into religions. Some people are born Catholic. Their parents are Catholic. They go to Catholic. They go to mass. You know what I mean? That's the way it works. If somebody's born into, parents are a Muslim, they're born into Islam. And if they have to be hijabi, they're hijabi. I don't have to approve of it. And life is like, you're born to a crappy parent and your crappy mother decides to waterboard you and stick you in a freezer. That sucks too. Yes, it's true. Sometimes we're born into situations where we grow up. The kids that grew up with the mother who now doesn't seem to care about them as much. That's mom forces you to be on YouTube all the time so she can make a lot of money off you. Is that right? I'm not saying it is. There's a lot of bad parenting, and there's a lot of bad choices being made by the adults in children's lives. But that doesn't mean in our legal system we should continue to do things wrongly because we feel sorry that some people ended up in bad situations. Because I'm dealing with evidence, and I'm dealing with profiling, and I'm dealing with the court system as far as this goes. And I say this, the side thing of just saying, hey, try not to be in these places that this happens. I mean, one of the women, she went to some party, and I'm going to say, she was an adult at that time. She wasn't a child. So she was a Scientologist, and so other people are Scientologists. Doesn't mean you have to go to the party. It doesn't mean you have to participate in things that are happening at the party. I mean, you have to make choices, and you can't constantly always say, my religion made me do it, or I had no choice. I had to do everything they said, unless it's a very, very unique circumstance. And I just think that, yes, I know Scientology has a really bad name now, and I say I don't want to get into all their practices and what people believe in. I think it's a little strange myself, but people say, that's why I said when I started out, people say this about every organization, every group of people. If they don't like them, then they say, well, that person was forced into things. They didn't have a choice. And sometimes it's true, but a lot of times it isn't. But again, when it comes down to crimes, it should be a real crime. And you should be able to prove it's a crime and that person committed the crime. Because if we don't hold to that standard, we're in trouble. So, like life sucks. Sometimes it does. I mean, sometimes it's tough, but then again, it's an adventure, and hopefully we get the better roll of the die. But sometimes we don't. We get screwed. It sucks. I mean, I haven't had a perfect life. I mean, I can't complain, but it doesn't mean my life has been perfect. There's things I wish didn't happen, but then again, there are great things that do happen. So. I don't ever expect I'm the one who I have to get everything. Everything has to be perfect. Everybody's supposed to love me. I'm supposed to be so happy all the time. I don't believe that. I believe life is an adventure, and it's a challenge, and it's interesting. And if we're, we have to fight our way through it. And we have to find ways to have a good life as best we can. And we have to do the best we can. We have to be as nice as we can, at least most of the time. Pat keeps a bag of onions up her sleeves. Yeah, I didn't go the whole distance. I did. I think I did it on the other show. I think I actually did look like I was crying, but and so people went, oh, but yeah, it is. False accusations are devastating. They are. So, we have to make sure that it's not true. False accusations are no different than falsely accusing somebody of homicide or falsely accusing somebody of other crimes that they didn't do either. You can be suspicious and you can say this should be investigated, but I personally think that by the time it hits the court, it should be something solid. And I think the prosecution was pushed by the public. I think they fell into that thing where the public and this anti-Scientology and Leah Remini going all over the place and being so popular pushed them to, I think it was a political move on the part of the prosecution. It's kind of like Adnan Syed, I thought he was rightly convicted, but as soon as, it became a political deal to get him out because it was popular at the time, then they pushed to get him out. And suddenly the prosecution is like, oh, we think that was bad prosecution. Let's let him out. I'm like, what? The jury found him guilty, and now you're just going to say no? But it was a Mosley, I think, at the time, and she's like, she was trying to make some political points. It's just frustrating. That can be true. But again, people get away with things all the time. Okay, they get away with things. And powerful people always get away with things. That's the way of the world. Now, it still doesn't mean we don't have to have evidence to accuse them of something. As I say, I cannot like somebody. I can think the guy's a scumbag and a half. I think he's a slime bag. And I think he should be taken down if there's evidence. That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking for evidence, not that you have to, that's it. I don't even know most of these people, so I can't even comment on what kind of creep they are. But I say I've been in Hollywood. I didn't run into Weinstein, but, Weinstein or whatever his name is, I didn't run into him. So I lucked out on that. But then again, I wouldn't have slept with a dude. I wouldn't have gone into his place by himself. I wouldn't have gone to why are you going to his place when you know he's a creep? Okay? Don't do it. I met people in restaurants, in public view. I made sure I was always in public view when I was having whatever. If I didn't trust somebody, I wasn't going to go into a private location with them. That's dangerous. Now I do have another story I'll tell another day about a stupid move I did, but not in Hollywood. But it almost got me killed, and that's just dumb. That's just dumb. So but a lot of the reasons the women go with Harvey was because they wanted something from Harvey. It's not a one-sided deal. He wants to be a scumbag sex pervert, and they want to become an actress. That's what happens in Hollywood. So it's not like they don't know what's happening. They do. They don't want to admit they know. Because who wants to admit I slept around in Hollywood to try to get to make it there? Nobody likes to admit. You're prostituting yourself. Oh, shoot. Scared the crap out of me. Oh, I thought I'd turn that off, but I turned it back on when the disaster occurred. Oh, no, it scared me. That's a text from my daughter. So anyway, so that's my, that is true. But again, so is being naive, is that an excuse for making bad choices? And, and a lot of times, let's face it, when we're young, we make a lot of stupid choices anyway. We can say that all the time. But there's lines maybe we shouldn't cross, okay? And we cross them because we want to, because we want something. And they're not that, I don't know. These girls are not that naive. You can't be in Hollywood for more than a day and not know what's going on. Come on. Even back, went there in the 70s. It was like 73, I think. And I was more astute. No, all you do is talk to one person. And they tell you what's going on. If they're not that dumb. Okay, believe me, they're not that dumb. What they want is to become famous. People will do a lot to be famous. They will. And unfortunately, and you have men out there who will say they had to go through the same thing. You get less of them because of the issue of some men aren't going to go with other men, but women, most of the producers are men. And so, and a lot of the girls, what happens is they've already had sex, they put themselves on the pill, and they figure, well, I've already had sex with a few guys, so why not just have sex with a few more and I get what I want? As a matter of fact, I had sex with a few guys and they were terrible lovers. I didn't get anything out of that anyway. But if I have sex with these men, I might get to be a famous actress. It's worth it. They're making choices. They're not that dumb. They're not. We keep saying that. But they're not that dumb. Fame doesn't erase shame. For some people, it does. Are you kidding me? It's like, oh, I did a few dudes, but look where I'm at now. No, it all depends. It all depends. Statute of limitations. I believe there should be statute of limitations. I do. Now, the question comes down to, I guess again, mostly it's about proof. That if you have solid 100% proof, I don't even care about the statute of limitations. But when you have this more circumstantially crap and people saying this and that, I think it's just unacceptable. I mean, it shouldn't have ever gotten to court. That's my opinion. Yeah, just crazy stuff. I don't think about the hot now. Maybe this way, but no. I was never that dumb. Because I was logical, I saw things for what they were, and I was like, okay, well, I have a choice: do this or do that. I got the offer for a penthouse. That was one modeling job I could have gotten. I got an offer for a penthouse, and I turned it down because that was before the days of the internet too, where it just splashed everywhere. But my fear was that what if I do this sleazy thing, and then which was too sleazy for me to really want to do it. But then on top of that magazine, you'd open it up and there'd be my picture. What if my future kids saw that? What if my parents saw that? And I forgot what they were offering me. It wasn't bad. It was like $20,000 or something. And that was way more money than I ever had. But I decided, well, that money will, if I get that money, it'll be gone in a year, but that damn magazine will be around forever. And I said, no. So, yeah. So it's we make choices, and we can, we have to stop saying we didn't make choices and always blame it on somebody else because, well, we believed them or we didn't think we had a choice. And we always do. We have choices. They're just not always pleasant. And sometimes you have to take the hard route. If you take a choice to do things a certain way, you may have to work harder than if you found another way to get through. That's where prostitution comes in. When a person goes into an escort service, they're like, well, if I make $200 an hour, it beats the hell out of having to work at Dairy Queen. Well, it does. $200 an hour is, that's pretty good. And Dairy Queen pays, whatever it pays. And so, you work a couple jobs in one night, and you're already way past what you would have gotten in Dairy Queen for a week. And you don't have to stand up the whole time. It's like, but is it good for you? Is it healthy? Could you decide a better way to live and then get a better job? Sometimes you just have to put out the extra effort, and you have to do it the hard way. Or you make a choice to do it some other way. So a lot of women, they jumped on that casting couch. Don't believe that they didn't do that. Some people think everybody's like, oh my God, these poor girls, I went to Hollywood and they had no choice. They had choices. And most of them had no talent to begin with. This is the problem. And when you get to Hollywood, when I drove in there, I didn't get off the bus. When I drove in Hollywood and I started walking around, I realized, my God, I'm not that pretty. Every girl looked the same as me. They were all, these girls from all over the country were gorgeous. They jumped on buses coming out of Iowa and Idaho and Kansas, and they jump off in Hollywood with no talent, but just looks. And they sleep their way around, hoping that they're going to be the one that's chosen. That's a choice. That's a choice. They also could have just stayed home and worked in their hometown. They could have gone to school. They could have gotten a skill. But they chose to jump on a bus and go to Hollywood and sleep with people. with the hopes that they were going to get lucky. Some of them did. So it's not like some girls who they had sex with producers and actors. They did get lucky. They got those jobs and they got a place in Hollywood. So it can work. But, yeah. Ow. My hand just went numb. All right. Ow. Gotta cramp my hand. Okay, that's enough of that. I just, I know that, hopefully I'll never have to talk about this again. And I know it's not popular and not appreciated, but I just feel like it's necessary. To say this one time, and the Russell Brand thing, well, I sort of that'll go on, and I don't know what'll happen to that guy, but he's already lost most of his livelihood, and people are turning on him like crazy. And it's frightening to have that kind of thing descend like that and have these big organizations just shut you down and take your money away and based on something that nobody knows is true. So that's real concerning. Now I did talk about that. What's this guy? The football coach, and I think they fired him, but they should. I mean, he admitted to what he was doing, and dude, that's just. I talked about that last time, but I mean, if you're on a phone call with a woman who's supposed to be preventing sexual assault and you're jacking off, hey, you're scummy and you should know better. And he admitted it. So it's not like he didn't do it. I would fire him too. He's an embarrassment to the college. Do I think he should be charged? She claims she didn't encourage it. So she sees it as sexual assault. He claims that they were flirting. I don't know that I would, again, I don't know that I think there's evidence to charge him with a crime. But I think there's perfectly good evidence to fire his butt because he admitted to doing it. And he was admitting to, especially because the woman was working, she had been gang raped in her life, and that's true. And she was working to improve this kind of thing on campuses and all this and football teams. And I approve of her work. She's really good. And she was truly gang raped. That's not a he said, she said. That's a she said and four guys said. I guess they basically admitted, at least most of them admitted they did it, but they kind of try to make it sound like he did it more than me. But there was not a question. Sadly, it didn't go to trial because they required her to actually testify, and somebody talked her out of testifying, which I find appalling because since the guys admitted they did it, I don't know why the victim has to show up in court. That to me is insane. So sadly, they didn't get charged. But she was legitimate. I have no problem with her. Her claim was backed by evidence. So I approve of that. As far as the phone call, I don't know if they were flirting and he decided to do that, or she was just talking to him and he decided to do that. And she's like, oh my God, that's disgusting. I don't know which way it goes. I can't prove. So I would not think he should be charged with a crime, but I do think he should be fired because it's an embarrassment, and she should have nothing to ever do with him again. He's a disgusting human being. So I'm good with that because there was evidence of that. I just don't know. There's just hard to prove evidence of whether it was consensual phone sex or not. So yeah. You're not finding that a flirt? Well, you don't know. That's disgusting. Yeah. That's the whole problem. But see, that does happen. And if I've been around long enough to know that it does happen. So you have to be able to prove that there was not some kind of phone sex acceptable during that phone call. She says she was horrified, and I tend to lean toward her on this one. But as far as the phone thing goes, but again, I think he should be fired, but I don't know it's enough for a prosecution. So, yeah, pat on a rampage, yeah. Oh, stop! It was. That's for sure. Oh my God. Oh, it's appalling. Yeah, I like this comment. Well, yes, but see, here we have these sad situations again. This is what I wish we would work harder for our young women. Natalie Holloway and Stephanie Ramirez made the mistake of going off with a stranger that they didn't think would harm them because he's a good-looking dude and can talk nice. But they didn't know him. And they went off alone to isolated locations. This is what we need to stop women from doing. Now, people are going to say, well, geez, women can't do anything then. It's like, well, I could keep them locked up. But no, I mean, there's ways to get to know somebody. And let me put it this way. Sexual predators have no patience. If they're not willing to see you in a public location, get to know you, then they're not worth being around. And if you say this to a guy, no, I'll meet you at a public place, let's get to know each other, and then whatever. And that guy says, oh, I got something better to do, because he's got other girls he can go to private places with. So he'll dump you in a heartbeat. So yeah, it's sad. And they were drinking. So again, see, drinking takes women in bad places, and unless you stay in a group, and we didn't. There's an excessive amount of drinking these days, excessive with the shot thing going on. Because I know when I was younger, we would go and like get a Tom Collins and nurse it all night long, But now people just chuck the shots down, and women cannot handle those, and bad things happen. And I wish they would stop, because beautiful young women suffer terribly, and these two women got murdered for that. Just having a fun time drinking and then going off with a cute guy. But see, back in the day, maybe that wasn't something people did. They didn't just run off with a cute guy to a beach drunk. You know what I mean? So, and it's not her. She didn't kill herself. He did it. But still, I mean, it's just. But I did stuff like that too. I'm not saying I didn't. I remember being that age and doing some dumb stuff and going to some isolated places with people I shouldn't have gone isolated places with. But I say that's where our society is, and maybe we need to pull back on that a little bit. That's all I'm saying. I think we need to be, maybe work on being safer. And somebody pointed out to me that, oh, well, why don't you teach guys to be better guys? Well, absolutely. What boys need growing up is for men to teach them to be gentlemen. They need fathers to teach them to be gentlemen. They need to not be able to do things to girls, not be told that they should just go out and have a good time. Maybe we need to go back to you don't have sex before marriage. Or at least in a real relationship. But that's not what's being taught today. Sex is just fun. It's not about loving somebody. And when we tell that to our kids and they start pushing sex stuff on the kids young, we're just increasing this problem. There's something to protecting the ladies and something to protecting the young men too from harming themselves and by doing stupid things that harm each other. All of that should be taught, but we're not doing it because we keep saying, well, I have the right to do whatever I want. And that person shouldn't be the psychopath that he is. Well, you have the right to go jogging, but you can't stop the psychopath from jumping out of the tree and killing you. You can't. And so don't go, you want to avoid being around psychopaths. But, you can't change a psychopath. No, we can try to have better family lives, better communities so we don't raise psychopaths. And I go with that. But, once you're an adult, you're going to have freedom to move around. You have to make the safest choices you can make. And I don't think we're making those. And we have a lot of bad behavior. And that's where I got in trouble with that. I got in trouble with that. That's where the lawyer for the Duke team wanted to sue me because he said, we're going to sue you if you don't retract your statement. And I said, what statement? Well, that they were guilty. I said, I never said the Duke team was guilty. I said they had bad behavior. They had bad behavior because they hired a prostitute. And the prostitute claimed they did things to them. See? They were actually victims, but they had bad behavior. Don't hire prostitutes. That's inappropriate. Your college boys don't act like that. And don't do those things. You have bad behavior and you got an accusation that was a lie, but still you put yourselves in a bad position. See, boys do it too. Girls do it, boys do it, men do it, women do it. But well, we have to take some responsibilities for ourselves. So, all right. Anyway, okay, I gotta let you guys go, and I gotta go eat dinner. Yes, I do. So anyway, hopefully I will not revisit this topic again because it's unpleasant to read the comments. It really is. It always gets so volatile, and people get so angry, and it's stressful. People don't understand that when you're on this side of the camera, when you start reading the comments coming in, just saying horrific things, and you don't see a lot of this because I do block some of those, and as many as I can see, and after a while I have to give up. But right when the show is done, I do see them come in, and if I find them offensive and nasty, I do just block the person, in the comment. But it's still, it takes a toll, and I'm pretty tough. Been around long enough and make my own choices. I chose to say this stuff. I chose to be open about my thoughts on the issue. So I have to take the heat, right? I made the choice. What can I say? All right. So good night, everybody. And wow. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back after all that disaster. I'm going to have my son connect the two shows, I think. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Anyway, maybe I should make this whole thing a separate show. Just cut it. Yeah, I might do that. So if you're coming here and it was just this show is by itself, that might be what I'll do. I'm not sure. Anyway, thank you for being here and being so great. I really appreciate your politeness and how nice you are. And I needed that after the Verizon disaster. That just so frustrating. So anyway, I will see you all for. I haven't decided on the case for the weekend yet. And I got to work it around some events that are going on. So I'm going to try to figure it out, but I will. Bye, everybody.